The New York Giants 53-man roster is set for now. We're going to go through all of the cuts that happened today and a couple days prior to this to get to this point as 53-man roster is set. But with that being said, you can tell by the way positions are lined up that they are not done yet. The New York Giants are, I guess you could say, just getting started and are going to be looking at the waivers, maybe even trades to help get where they need to be. With that being said, my name is Josh, and I am joined by my friend and co-host here on the Giant Take YouTube channel. We do a podcast together called the Giant Take Podcast. Some episodes go on here. Some episodes are on podcast platforms. If you enjoy getting your Giants content and are excited for the regular season just like us, I recommend hitting that subscribe button down below, dropping a like on this video, and continuing to stay with us throughout this video and on through the regular season. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Today was a hectic day, hectic morning. Cuts started at 8 a.m. sharp, it seemed like on Twitter, and it's been a very busy day, and I'm excited to get into this initial 53-man roster. Obviously, over the next 24 to 48 hours, there'll be some waiver claims, etc., some roster adjustments, moves onto IR, pickups of possible players who we cut before, so that's why, we got to keep our eyes open. And I'm sure we will, obviously, but I'm excited to get into it, and I think we should just get right into it with the cuts that happened. The Giants did 7 yesterday, and then they had to do 20 today, so we'll get into all of those guys right now, and we're going to do them by position. So at QB, Davis Webb was cut, probably one of the shocks of the day. I think he's going to be brought back on the practice squad. I'd say 94%, odd number there, but that's what I'm going with. That he will be back on the Giants on the practice squad. I doubt anyone's going to pick him up on waivers. And then running back room, Deshaun Corbin unfortunately did not make the roster. So that, kind of shows you into the direction of which way the Giants did end up going. We'll talk about it in a few minutes. And Sandro Plaxcummer is still on the IPP exemption. So he's kind of still on the roster. He's like your 54th man, if that makes any sense. But he's still there, but he's technically not on the roster, so we kind of have him in the cuts section as well. Josh, do you have anything about those guys before we talk about some of the wide receivers?
Just mentioning the International Player Program is what you mean by IPP. And I wonder, is it only that they're allowed to carry one for each team? Because not skipping ahead too much, but they did cut Roy Mbatika. I don't know how to say his name. I
don't think so. I think it could just be the fact that Roy Mbatika was not up to Giant standards, maybe. But I think it might be, actually, because you're right. Because I believe we had 2 last year, and Sandro was the only one who made it last year. So could it be that Sandro is the only one this year again? Interesting. You make a good point. I don't know about that. But certainly, a deep running back room. So some guys had to not make the cut. Wide receivers, Keelan Doss unfortunately did not make it. He posted us on his Twitter story, so kind of sad, or Instagram story, sorry. So kind of sad that he didn't make it, but good luck to him. Hopefully he finds his way to a new team, along with all these guys who got cut. Obviously, these are human beings, so it's important to think about that. They're not just names on a Twitter or on a list. So you got to think about it that way too. Travis Tovan, I believe it was, he had that insane one-handed grab in the final preseason game. He is gone. CJ Board is also gone, probably coming back to the practice squad. Alex Bachmann was cut. I know a lot of Giants fans were upset about that. I kind of expected that to happen. I think he will return on the practice squad. I could see another team picking him up possibly, but I think him and CJ Board are likely to return on the practice squad. That would be my guess. And Jalen Moore, who's brought in as kind of an extra body for the last few days of training camp, he also was cut at the wide receiver position.
And moving on to tight end and offensive line, there was only one tight end that was cut, which was Austin Allen, which is very interesting in the way that the one of the tight ends that did make the roster for the Giants only really been on the Giants roster for 3 days, maybe. So stuff we'll have to get into in a little bit there.
A lot of tight ends got cut today, so a lot on waivers. I think that's definitely going to be a position you'll see the Giants pick someone up at.
Biggest name being O.J. Howard, who was cut by, what team was it? He's not on the Buccaneers anymore,
Buffalo.
right? Buffalo.
He
Bills.
went to Buffalo, yeah. And he's an interesting one because he had $3 million in guaranteed money. So certainly a weird one there. So maybe there's some red flags. I don't know. I'm not involved in the situation, but certainly interesting.
Offensive line, the cuts include Eric Smith, Josh Rivas, Garrett McGinn, Jamil Douglas, Ryan Batika, who we talked about earlier, and Will Holden. Not really any surprises there. Jamil Douglas was not, I guess he played with the team in second and third team reps, but wasn't very good in training camp or preseason games. And I think the next up that maybe could have made the roster was Garrett McGinn. But those guys, I don't think were any really big surprises on offensive line to get cut.
Yeah, I agree with you. Maybe Douglas a little bit, but he looked not very good throughout preseason, so I'm not really surprised. I know some people seem surprised or were surprised, but I certainly wasn't. Defensive line, specifically the interior guys, David Moa, who's kind of been around with the Giants for a couple of years now. I think he will probably land his way onto the practice squad, along with Ryder Anderson, who I thought had a chance, maybe a borderline chance, but he did not make the roster. He probably will be on the practice squad. And Jalen Holmes had that injury in the final preseason game, a concussion, I believe, but unfortunately did not make the 53-man roster. And then at linebacker, I guess the shock of the day, if you want to say, was Quincy Rochet. He got cut, and I believe he's definitely going to be picked up on waivers. You don't get a guy who had the production he had last season just slip through the cracks like that. So I don't think he'll be making his way onto our practice squad, unfortunately. But it seems like O'Shane Ximenez, Ellerson Smith got the nod ahead of him, which we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. But certainly I'm not a fan of this move, but I'm not going to freak out over one, borderline, depth piece kind of player who, got cut. I'm going to trust the coaching staff for now. I'm not going to freak out yet. Is it what I would have done? No, but again, I'm not an NFL coach.
Going on to the defensive backs now on, what was I saying? Starting off with the safety that got cut a few days ago, Andrew Adams. Yusuf Corker got cut yesterday, Alex's favorite. Forced me to, I have to throw him under the bus for this. He forced me to put him on the pre-training camp 53-man roster predictions when I literally said repeatedly he wouldn't make the roster. Well, look who's right in the end of things there. Cornerback Elijah Griffin, cornerback Darren Evans, cornerback Zion Gilbert, surprisingly, and same thing with Khalil Dorsey. A little surprising that all three of those guys got cut. We were thinking that at least one of the three, if not maybe two of the three guys would stay on the team. The Giants decide to rock with 5 cornerbacks on the 53-man roster, you would assume, meaning they're going to go after some more on the waiver wire. And then safeties, Nate Meters and Trenton Thompson both get cut as well, which is also surprising, especially Trenton Thompson, but Nate Meters too were on predictions for some people as well. So big, I would say, not big surprise. Yes, I would say big surprises.
Small surprises.
Small surprises, fine. Small surprises when it comes to the defensive backs that got cut.
Yeah, and obviously also Ryan Santoso. He was just brought in to kick during that preseason game. He was cut as well. So that's another player there. In terms of the most shocking guys who got cut, I'd say Quincy Rochet, probably Andrew Adams, honestly, a few days ago was pretty shocking. And I say Trenton Thompson was probably one of the more confusing ones, along with Davis Webb as well. Let's run through the actual 53-man roster now. I'll take offense, Josh will do defense, and then we can share the delight of special teams. So on offense, our QBs are going to be Daniel Jones. Obviously, this is all initial. Waivers have not been completed. IR moves have not been done yet, so this is all initial. But Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor as the QBs. Saquon Barkley, Matt Breida, Antonio Williams, and Gary Brightwell at running back. Wide receivers, Kenny Galladay, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, Wan'Dale Robinson. Darius Slayton does make the roster, could be a potential trade candidate. David Sills, Richie James, and that's going to be our wide receiver room. Tight end, Daniel Bellinger, Tanner Hudson, Chris Myrick. And offensive line, Andrew Thomas, Shane Lemieux, John Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, Devery Hamilton, Ben Bredesen, Max Garcia.
Moving on to the Giants defense now, we're going to start off with safety, Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, and Dane Belton, who again, remember, has a broken collarbone, probably won't be ready by week 1. We'll have to wait and see, but he is, for right now, in the 53-man roster. Cornerbacks are Adoree Jackson, Darnay Holmes, Aaron Robinson, Cordell Flott, and Rodarius Williams. So we talked about this in our 53-man roster predictions. After these top 4, everything else is kind of questionable past that. Rodarius Williams, I don't think it's a huge surprise making the roster here. But again, only 5 cornerbacks currently on the Giants 53-man roster. Linebackers are Blake Martinez, Tate Crowder, Micah McFadden, Austin Calitro, Carter Coughlin, and Cam Brown. The surprise there, you see it. You hear it, I guess, because I just read it. Calitro, Coughlin, and Brown. All 3 of those guys making the roster. I would say if you were going to put those 3 up to me yesterday or 2 days ago, I would only have 1, maybe 2 of them making it out of those 3. Outside linebacker, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Jihad Ward, O'Shane Zimenez, and Ellerson Smith, and Tomon Fox make it. So Tomon Fox,
so happy about that. But I don't think he's going to make the final cut, unfortunately, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see. The only undrafted free agent that made the Giants roster as of now. So I wouldn't say it really was a surprise, the outside linebacker position on the roster for me. And then we end with defensive line, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, Nick Williams, Justin Ellis, DJ Davidson. I don't know.
Don't forget about special teams, man. Graham Gano, Jamie Gillen, and Casey Kreider. Very shocking news there with that. But I want to kind of look at some spots on the roster that I think are definitely going to be looked at in waivers. So if I look, right, I think the I think QB, running back, wide receiver, I don't think you're going to see any changes there. I think tight end, you're going to see someone come in off of waivers. And I think offensive line, because they don't really have a natural swing tackle there on the offensive line. So I think you're going to see someone like that come in. I tweeted about it. I really want Keelan Dyche. I believe he came out of Arizona State, I want to say. I really liked him coming out of the draft. He got cut today. So certainly an option there, but I think there's a ton of swing tackles that could be available. Another safety, I think, is a definite one. And corner is obviously the main need. But those are like the 4 positions I'm looking at. Tight end, O-line, safety, corner for roster improvements.
Yeah, and with that being said, don't want to have this video go too long, but the New York Giants 53-man roster for now is set, cuts made, and regular season fastly approaching. Again, you can hit that subscribe button down below, drop a like. You can follow us on social media. The places to follow us, like the usernames and stuff, will be in the description. Really appreciate you watching. Thanks so much. See you next time for another video. Peace.